Hi guys, yes, we are going to talk about Candyland today. Not because you don't know what Candyland is, just because I have a few things about Candyland that I feel like sharing. So let's get into it. Candyland is a game, I don't need to tell you this, but I will just mention it's for ages 3+ and it is for 2 to 4 players. In our home, we have 2 different copies of it. This is the one that came out and it was printed in 2001. And I got this when I was a young adult, well away from having any children of my own. But I guess I just bought it one day thinking, oh, this is a classic item I'm gonna need to have in my home for when I get married and have children. And so I went and picked up my own version of Candyland and then have been hauling it around with me ever since, even though I didn't even have my first child till I was 29 years old. In this version, the board looks like this. I don't believe it's exactly like the one from the 1980s, which is the one I would have grown up on probably, or a late 70s version. I don't even know when the first version of this was printed and or how many reprints there have been. But I was pretty happy with this board. If I can recall my thought process at the time, I think I was more cognizant of the differences, the modern artwork in this versus the one I had grown up with, and I just don't remember now to the fine detail anymore what that would be all about. We're going to talk though a little bit about artwork in games today, and I'm going to zoom in on some of their faces here just so you can get a good look at that. Yeah, this game is not gonna totally prove my point about what I want to say about artwork, but it's gonna be an ongoing conversation and it's just on my mind today, so we're gonna use this game to talk about that a little bit. The pieces in this game look like this. All right, so then moving ahead, the game was given to us as a gift again when my son was little, and this is a 2014 version. And this one, the pieces look like this. So just again, here's the difference in the shape, in the look of them. And the board in 2014 looks like this. Right away, well, let's zoom in again on faces because we're talking a little bit about faces and artwork. Totally different peppermint looking guy. I mean, he's been way modified and updated. On this version, some of the characters, the special characters with the pink cards, are actually missing. They're omitted. There's no Plumpy, for example. And you'll notice that there are it's a shorter board. There are less spaces. So here are my thoughts on the game Candyland and my 2 different versions and some of my thoughts on artwork in general. So here we go. When I first received this game, I was disappointed. I was like, no, now we're getting, the artwork is moving further and further away from the one that I am nostalgic about. Now, nostalgia, we just talked about that recently with the Goonies. And then I was disappointed that the board was so short. Well, as it turns out, in reality, I was really thankful to have both versions of this because Candyland is pure torture to play. I mean, come on now. Like, yes, it's fun a couple of times. It's got that nostalgia factor. Being that you make no meaningful decisions at all, there is something a little fun about it because it kind of sucks you into this very brightly colored fantasy world, and we all have our thing we like to think about. I really like to think about being a princess in a land of ice cream. That keeps my mind happy there for a few seconds, so I can live off of that with it. But the fact that this board was shorter made the game go by quicker, so less of an attention span requirement for my child and less dragged out for myself and less moving forward and going backward and moving forward and going backward so far. So what I've actually done in my home is the original, not original, but the older one that I've had, I kind of keep that up on a shelf and they have to ask my permission to use that because I don't want that one to get broken. And then this one I was real loose with and I let them keep it in their room and they could play it any time, which is why it got broken and taped and so on and so forth. All right, moving on. Now, let's talk about artwork for just a minute. the artwork in these games, I do find, as far as the detail orientation, to be similar. I actually was surprised because I thought the one that was newer was going to disappoint me because I thought it was going to be more dumbed down. I don't know if you noticed, I hope you noticed, and I hope I am not the only one who is upset by this, but back in the early 2000s, when artwork started to change over to be much more digital and computerized, oh, did the artwork ever take an enormous step backwards? I mean, you might say we were moving ahead technologically, but we went back to, like, I don't know, we went somewhere as far as the quality and the detail of the artwork. I mean, now people are making these simplified computer animations, and then they're just like duplicating them over and over and over again. You get a counting book, you're counting something, every single thing looks exactly the same in the same position. It's just monotonous, it is boring. The characters lost expressions. VeggieTales, I got into that for a minute. I thought VeggieTales were good. Now I don't know what I was thinking. I hate VeggieTales. Just garbage. And when I say, you know what, I'm going to rephrase. When I say we took a step back, I wanted to say like back to the caveman times. But as a Christian, I don't believe that there were caveman times in the sense that we have been taught. I believe that actually the original creation that was closer to Adam and Eve and closer to what God originally intended for us were actually far more intelligent than what we have today. We have been being dumbed down over a long period of time, which is why I tend to be a little nostalgic and a little traditional, and I tend to be a little retro and like things from the past, because I think there's a lot of quality in things from a little further back, and some of this modern stuff is just making us dumb as a box of rocks, I think. But anyway, so I'm going to give a couple examples of what I think is good and bad artwork. I just grabbed some things around the house really quickly. These aren't even games. I'm just going to grab some stuff from books. All right. This is a book in a series, in a What on Earth series. And this one is called What on Earth Robots. There's also air, water, and environment and some different things. We got a couple of these from the library. I liked the way they were written, and I liked the hands-on activities. So I ended up getting a few used. And then we're using them, but I'm kind of regretting it because I didn't realize, I think the first one I had was about birds, and that one wasn't so bad. But once I got the others that had people depicted in them, look at these people. So unrealistic. Look at this guy here. His head is shaped like a jelly bean. They tend to have these big, bulbous, bright red noses. The proportions are off. They have hardly any expression. This is just, I don't know. What is this teaching our kids? Okay, I don't like this. I do not like this kind of artwork at all. I almost nearly despise it. All right, then I fell for another trend. I fell for the trend of these educational DVDs that are by, Preschool Prep Company, Meet the Sight Words. And I've let my kids watch these. They didn't really teach my kids anything. They watched those videos over several times, and really honestly, the only way they've learned to do blends and phonograms and letter sounds and begun to read anything at all is because I taught them. Even stuff that I was teaching them that I knew full well they had watched 30 times on those videos, they didn't even get it until I taught it to them. So those were a waste of money. But in that process, I also, what was I thinking? We have good intentions. I fell for purchasing the books that go along with it. Terrible artwork. Terrible, terrible nondescript artwork. The eyes are far apart. They're huge. They're glossy. They don't even have noses. Really, really not impressed. Kind of creepy. Man, if I was a kid, I don't know. I think I would have some bad dreams looking at some of the faces in these books. This is the kind of artwork I am way super not impressed with, and I think we can do a lot better. Now, here is a hand-me-down Bible Nurture and Reader series by Rod and Staff Publishers Incorporated, and this was from, I want to say, 1964, and Well, it says here copyright 1985. Oh, but the first edition was 1964. So I don't know which edition this artwork came from. But look at these children. So much more realistic, so much more detail on their faces. I mean, they have hair, they have ears. This, way better, way better. And then I'm sure you guys have seen this. This has been around a long time. The artwork in here is pretty good. I'm still kind of looking for something around my house that I would say is like top-notch 10-star artwork. But I just want you to look at this page. This is on Abram and Lot, page 36 and 37. Look at the detail in these men's faces. Do you see the lines, the creases, the looks on their eyes, the way their mouth is positioned? I mean, look at this compared to this. Are we trying to dehumanize our kids or what? And you know what? Kids don't want to see faceless children. They actually want to see adults. They want to find out what it means to be an adult. They want to emulate and learn. This is going to be fascinating. Well, what are they thinking? What are they talking about? What can I gather? I want you to just think a moment about actors. Now, I'm not a proponent of Hollywood movies, but just imagine the expression and what it means to a movie. Think about Clint Eastwood. Think about his seriousness in some of his movies, his determination, his grittiness, what he's showing as a man, what's going on. You look at his eyes, what would he be thinking about in that scene? So expressive, so manly. Imagine watching imagine hearing a Jack Nicholson movie and never being able to see Jack Nicholson's face. I mean, if you want to talk about tiny nuances and facial expression, I mean, he's got some looks I've never seen anyone make but him. Bruce Willis, Cary Grant, Will Smith, Tom Selleck. I'm picking some people that I like. Think about all of that expression on their faces and just, imagine, this. Even Jonathan Rumi, which I got mixed feelings about the portrayal of the Bible and all of that. Mixed feelings, that means some good, some bad. But look at the expressions on his face as you're trying to comprehend what would it have been like to have been the Son of God, to be human and to be God. Look at the faces of the disciples if you're somebody who watches The Chosen. What are you reading on their faces? Children need to see this. They need to know what it means to grow up, to be a man or to be a woman, and to have expression and to be able to read expression. So, the cartoony faces on these games, like Candyland or in general, the more realistic they are, the more in favor of them I am always going to be, as long as they are not creepy and scary and, twisted looking. All right, so getting back to Candyland, the concept of the game, it is about candy. It's a huge candy fantasy. In our family, we are really limited with the candy. I prefer, as much as possible, I really try to avoid the artificial colors, the artificial flavors and sweeteners. If they're gonna have sugar, I want it to be cane sugar, if I can. I am the person who says no at the bank teller window. No, they do not want suckers. I don't completely deprive them. They do get their candy here and there. But I think a game that just promotes a whole fantasy world that's focused on candy, from a Christian perspective, I'm going to have to give this game probably like a 2 out of 5. I think God wants us to be healthy, and there is a responsibility to keep our bodies like the temple of God for the Holy Spirit, and just promoting this idea that, oh yeah, your goal is to get to this magical land where you get as much candy as you want, is almost like it's a little bit of a counterfeit for heaven, because I feel like on the board you are moving up, and yeah, sure enough, there are clouds, and it gets prettier as you reach the top. And you guys might think I'm nuts and I'm reading into this too much, but I do think there's a bit of a counterfeit here for heaven. Again, if nostalgia hadn't got the best of me, if I had not purchased Candyland when I was 19 or 20 years old or whatever it was before I had kids, and I could rewind, I don't think I would have even had Candyland in our house. I mean, I know it's a classic, My line, my black and white and gray area may very well be different from yours, but I think Candyland can go, and it's really, it's not that fun for me. I know it's fun for them, I will have to say. Good news is though, just today, my boys are 6 and 8. I challenged them to see if they could find 5 things from their room that they could declutter and remove. And I was really shocked that this board and all of the game pieces in the box that went with it were in a pile in the hall. So as 6 and 8-year-olds, they voluntarily, of their own ideas, thought that they could live without Candyland going forward. We didn't have a discussion about, well, are we going to keep the other one? But I was like, wow, they're ready to toss out Candyland. And so am I. One more thought on Candyland. I got to tell you a story. Okay. I like to be a little indulgent at certain times of the year. We just got done talking about candy. Of course, we're talking about candy. This is Candyland. One year, a couple times actually, at Christmas, I had this idea. I'm going to combine Candyland, which is normally pure torture, with the magical ambiance of the living room with all of the Christmas lights, and another thing that I really like to indulge in every once in a while, which are Jelly Bellies. So I ordered a box of those Jelly Belly little gourmet jelly beans with all the compartments and the different colors. And the deal was, every time you land on a square in Candyland, you get to pick one jelly bean whose color matches where you landed. And if you get a double card, you get to have 2. It was a fantastic idea in theory, but after about a third of the way through the game, we were just almost sick with the amount of candy. I thought, oh, there's such tiny little Jelly Bellies. We can do this, and this will end up being reasonable. It was not. So in case you've ever had that thought that you want to play Candyland with real candy, even when the pieces are itty bitty, I'm going to recommend that would be a no. Now, if I could do it again, if I had enough interest in Candyland with the age my boys are, I've played around with the idea. I don't know if I will. I think it would be cute to do it with fruit. I would like to see myself with a little bowl of blue blueberries and maybe some green grapes and some little orange mandarin sections or something. And every time you land in a square, you get to pick a piece of fruit. So I haven't done it, but I just want to throw that out there as a creative idea in case you want to make Candyland a little bit more sweet and tasty and divert their taste buds from sugar, artificial sugar, excessive sugar, to God's natural fruity sugar. So those are my thoughts on Candyland. Do kids think it's fun if they're young enough? Yes, they probably give it a 5. I would probably give it a 2 in terms of how much I enjoy playing it with them, maybe a 2.5. The nostalgia, it's bright and colorful. And as far as it being from a Christian perspective, I'm gonna give it a 2 because I think it just promotes indulgence. I'm not gonna give it like a 1 or a 0. I mean, because it's not like, it's not like about Satan or something, but yeah. Move over, Candyland, Chutes and Ladders. Come on, guys, let's do better. Let's make room on those shelves for something new and improved. Let me know what game you want to see replace Candyland on the shelves. What have you played that you feel should be a modern classic? And tell me your thoughts on Candyland. Am I nuts? Am I over the top that I think Candyland is not appropriate for the Christian household? Let me know, and have a wonderful day. God bless.